Hello party people, Carter here. What is happening? What's crack-a-lackin'? What's smackin'? Not much here, got a video for you. Bam, let's get right to it. I'm going to be doing a comparison between these two similar knives. They even look pretty similar. And by similar, I mainly mean in terms of their function, or at least proposed function, and their materials. Where they differ is the price point. I'm going to try to remain as unbiased as possible on these two knives and leave that up to you. So what we're looking at is a Strider SnG. This happens to be a Z-Wear 3/4 ground drop point version. Really, it would be better if this was the flat ground version, which is actually the original blade style. So let's pretend it's a flat ground SnG. And this is the DPx HEST 2.0 folder. This happens to be a limited edition with the brown scales and bead blasted titanium. Other than that though, it's the same as the regular HEST folder. Now, first off, what is the purpose of these knives? Well, these knives are meant to be hard use, throw anything at them folders, while at the same time being easily carryable and fairly lightweight. And they both achieve that in spades. You can see how thick that stock is. Thick titanium frame lock, lock stabilizer, really thick G10, and yet it's quite lightweight and it's not huge. It's about a 3.5 inch blade, and it's really not a massive knife. Same thing here. Solid titanium frame lock here, G10 scale, thick stock, lightweight and yet really tough. So the difference in these two knives is in the details. First off, let's look at the blade. Let's look at the thickness. Well, let's look at the length, right? That's what's important, right, ladies? The length? Or wait, no, anyways. So you can see here that the SnG blade is actually quite a bit longer. In fact, the overall length is even more longer. More longer? Longer. It's even longer. It's a longer knife. It's actually larger, as you can see here. And that is something important to keep in mind when we move to the next point. So anyways, back to the blade. Focus, Carter, focus. Blade is longer, but the cutting length is actually just about the exact same. You could actually say that the HEST has a little bit more cutting length. Has a little bit more belly too, but you know, that's not a huge deal. And if this were the flat ground version, it'd be very, very similar. Both of these are black coated, however, you don't have to get this black coated. There's different finishes. Now, the thickness is actually a little bit thicker on the HEST. Not a ton. I mean, you're not talking a huge cutting performance change, but it is a little bit thicker on the HEST. Being flat ground, it will go through materials a little bit better than this 3/4 hollow ground. However, this is thinner behind the edge, so it'll do shallow cuts a little bit easier than this would. But that's not the point of the video, talking about hollow grinds and flat grinds. But keep that in mind. Thumb stud opening here, hole opening here. That's up to you to decide which one you prefer. Thick G10 on this side, a little bit thicker on the HEST. In fact, the handle overall is thicker on the HEST, including the titanium and the G10. This has a separate back spacer made out of aluminum. Everything is press fit together very, very tightly by Lion Steel in Italy. This has an integrated back spacer, so one less part and one less seam in this design here. Both of these are frame locks. This one being thicker, as I said before. The geometry is quite similar in how they lock up. This is a little bit later lockup out of the box compared to the Strider. It does have that thicker blade stock though. So I'd say this is about 50%, whereas this is about 30% lockup. However, Striders can vary a little bit here and there. Pocket clip, obviously much deeper carry on the HEST. As you can see, about as deep as you can get, no pun intended. The Strider, you have a little bit more hanging out, no pun intended. Both have a lanyard hole. The Strider has the classic blade going through the lanyard hole. Makes it kind of difficult to put a lanyard in there without cutting it up, whereas the HEST doesn't have that problem, and it's a much bigger hole, no pun intended. Next up, let's talk ergonomics. The HEST is fabulous. I mean, yeah, I just said fabulous. It's great. Feels really awesome in the hand. The Strider, not bad. Not quite as comfortable, but still pretty freaking comfortable. The Strider lets you kind of go back on the knife, or you can choke up on the knife, whereas the default position is it's the equivalent of being choked up, right? I mean, this choil on the blade really is mimicked by the finger groove right here. So basically your default is the choke up position, whereas on here you have two different options. For cutting, I prefer to be up closer. This is more of a kind of defensive, I guess, type position where you can get back on the blade for snap cuts and things like that. But usually for cutting, I prefer to be closer up to the blade, just more control, it feels more solid, stuff like that. So you get that right out of the gate on the HEST. Now, you may say, but this one doesn't have a safety choil on it. Well, it kind of does. It does have this kind of quasi-flipper right here that'll actually protect your fingers if it were to fail on you. Not quite as secure or as safe as the Strider. This choil, you know, it really protects your fingers if it were to close on you. Whereas the HEST, it could potentially slip past and give you a nasty cut. But it does have some protection there, as you can see. Blade steel, kind of like the geometry. I'm not really going to get into one versus the other. This comes in D2. Some people like it, some people love it, some people don't like it. I don't know. It's one of those things. This generally comes in S30V or S35VN or CPM 154, or in this case Z-Wear. The standard is S30V though on this blade here. So yeah, both really good knives in my opinion. This is made in the US. This one is made in Italy. The company that owns, DPx is a US company, however. And I point that out because there's a difference between an Italian knife company that's bringing knives into the US for sale and a US company that outsources production to Italy. There is a difference. Mainly that difference is if you have a problem with this knife, if you need warranty work, if you need it replaced, you do have a US company that you can deal with, that you ship to. If it was completely produced overseas, like the Lion Steel SR1, sorry, I had a brain fart there, then you would actually have to ship it to Italy to get it worked on, warranty work and things like that. So you do have a US company front here, and that also means you're supporting at least somewhat a US company. Most of that money is going to that company. I do believe in the future they may have some US produced knives, wholly US produced knives, with their next folder lines. It's still kind of up in the air. But anyways, so difference between these two knives. Man, still haven't broken this one in because I'm still deciding if I'm going to keep it or not. But yeah, really cool knives right here. They're both very carryable. They're super strong, but not that heavy, and both excellent, excellent knives. All right, guys, that's it. Just a look at these two really cool, beastly, yet little, or fairly little knives. All right, guys, I'm out of here.